So thank you so much for inviting me to give a talk. It was a very, very interesting opportunity when I was invited because normally the kind of talks that I've been asked to give are along the lines of either the kind of work I've been doing or the technical details of the work I do. And I was very excited to share my personal story and my personal perspective and the kind of observation have made over the past 3 years. I've been working in the quantum field and really have kind of a open kind of a venue where uh, I get to share this in more honest settings and more open settings. So I actually made a few slides, but this is more for me to guide my conversation, make sure that I hit the points that I wanted to, and it's not super informative. So just that's um, one of my little caveat there. So one of the things that I really wanted to go over first was like who I am right now and how I got here, and what my current position at AT&T and InQnet is, and why I am so excited to stay in this industry, why I'm so glad that I am part of quantum industry, and the observation I made so far as to what makes it exciting and what I see that might be a red flag that people who are interested in joining would view. One second. Can you still see my screen? Sorry, when I share my screen, I can't see the chat window. Okay, so one of the things that one of the things that kind of struck me was that this is kind of a end of chapter 1 of, I feel like, what would be my story of my career. So it seems a little bit early, but I had quite a crazy ride last 3 years. So hopefully I get to give you some insight, but I just do want to let you know that I'm just starting out too, and I'm so glad to have this chance to talk about what my experience has been. So just let me quickly go over who I am. So I got my PhD in actually condensed matter physics from University of Illinois Urbana-Champaign, and from there I have actually moved on to a data science fellow program called Insight Data Science Fellow. I know it was a little bit of a detour there, and then to I became a senior member of technical staff at AT&T, and I got to lead AT&T's quantum program over the last 3 years. And as a part of that, I also got to be a visiting research staff at the Caltech, working on InQnet program. Now, I feel like career has two kind of views to look at it. One is a kind of retrospect, nice summarized story, like the one that I just got to share with you. And then there is another one where what happened as it went on. It's the way I kind of tell it to my friends all the time is, toward the end of when I went to graduate school, I wanted to be a physicist. There's nothing in the world, and no one can possibly stop me from becoming a physicist. I loved physics, and I loved researching. I thought it was one of the biggest privilege that I even get to do this. But then toward the end of my PhD, actually got unintentionally delayed by a couple of years because of my visa issues of obtaining visa to actually work. And I think that couple of years gave me kind of perspective where I started to think, is this what I really want to do in my life? And in that couple of years, I think if you ask me, I'm like, no, I don't want to do physics. I want to quit physics. I don't want to be a physicist anymore. And that's where the connection into Insight Data Science Fellow came from. I decided, well, what else can I do? Can I go into do other meaningful things in the society? And at that point, currently data science was such a big field, and there was this fellowship where it helps you transition from PhD. And I went in being, I'm going to do data science, and I had a great time during that program. I loved the field of machine learning. I loved AI. And toward the end of it, they match you with different companies. And AT&T was one of the companies that came in. And funny enough, you have to actually go to a demo to be able to actually apply to that company. And I was thinking, AT&T is such an old company. I'm not interested in it. Maybe I will skip the demo and I'll go to a different company. But then I got trapped in the demo because the demo was happening in the kitchen and I went in to grab a drink and I got trapped there. So I ended up sitting through the AT&T's demo, and they were there to recruit for actually artificial intelligence team for what they call intelligence systems team. And it sounded great because it was an innovation center. You really got to push the envelope of what this AI and machine learning can do. And I felt like that was lacking from other companies, other positions I was considering. So I put my name down for it. I went and interviewed. And then during the interview process, they're like, we're opening a quantum program. You have a physics background. Would you be interested in interviewing for the position too? And then I was like, I'm so determined to quit physics, but why not? I'll interview, see what it is like. Worst case scenario, it will be another interview practice for myself. So I went straight to I went and interviewed for this position, and as I was preparing for that interview, I was so excited. I was reading up all these things and reading up about quantum computing and networking beyond what I learned from school. And it kind of reminded me, I always loved quantum. In all these physics disciplines, there's classical mechanics, statistical mechanics, electrodynamics. I don't think quantum is the most elegant theory or beautiful theory. I think quantum's a little bit messy in some ways. And no wonder Einstein was very skeptical about it. I just really was always drawn to quantum. Quantum mechanics was my favorite class. And part of the reason what my research was focused on is looking at these quantum effects in materials. So it kind of invigorated me to really study for the interview. That really got me to decide, okay, this might be actually end up being the position I take. And I actually went interviewed, and they were like, we actually do like you for both the AI position and quantum position. Would you be okay with coming in with the, but we really need someone to lead the quantum part, so with the lead in quantum, but also do the AI work. It ended up that I absolutely fell in love with my role as being in the quantum part, and I actually have been doing probably 80% quantum and 20% on the AI side, mostly advising on writing short bits of code. So that's how I ended up here. And my husband always jokes that he's never seen someone fail so badly at quitting something, maybe other than like something like cigarette. But he looked at me and said, like, you would think quitting physics would be very easy, but no, it was not. I absolutely was terrible at quitting physics. So, and then I moved on to in my current position. And one of the things that I realized was all these little journeys I took was a great experience. And I never say no to a chance to have an exotic experience as long as there's some like huge cost behind it, because I always feel like I learned so much. But on top of it being an experience, I think the biggest learning I got to do through that is I really got to learn about myself. What do I like to do? What am I really good at? And ultimately, where do I feel my passion in? And here I was thinking my passion for physics had died. It turns out it wasn't my passion for physics had particularly died. It was that what happened was that my research field was overall PhD, you get so focused on one particular area, and that what I didn't enjoy was being so pigeonholed into just that one little area. I still loved doing everything that's involved in physics and how it manifests in the world. And I wanted to be more plugged into the rest of the world and how to have that role in it while still doing physics. So then I joined on to the AT&T Foundry and Caltech, joined the Caltech team, which Foundry was AT&T Innovation Center. And this actually has changed quite a bit recently, but for when I took the role, that's where our motto was kind of do what the big business cannot do. But when I joined in, this is what the start of the program was like. So our CEO felt very strongly that we should be doing quantum. Now, and then I joined, and as a result of that, and there was a collaboration set up between Caltech and AT&T to build a quantum network. We were AT&T's network company. That sure made sense. But that was about what it was set up. And when I really naively thought I would join, and there would be, we're going to do quantum towards doing this, and this is going to be your job. That was not set up at all. The first I realized was, what are we doing quantum for? What kind of role do we want to play, and how do we get involved in it? So this was my complete brain dump, was what I did during my job. I just went and started typing things I've done that came up in my head. And I think I could have gone about 3 more slides of this without stopping, but for just the demo purpose, these are what I wrote. But still, I love to write that in the first line. I got to teleport photons, but it was mostly, a lot of work was mostly on the building the system, designing the system such that it does does that part. I got to do pretty much anything that had to do with quantum came up in AT&T. So anytime there was a huge article about quantum news that came along, then I would, it was my job to go along, figure out what happened, and then write a nice summary or memo for our leadership and be like, this is what happened. This should be our response. But at the same time, it was my job to sometimes be, I almost felt like a postdoc at times, go to the laboratory and build the teleportation system. And then at times I would talk to a lot of startups and different companies and ask them what they're doing, try to build collaborations and how to fit their project and their development and the product into our program. Or sometimes I'm managing interns. Sometimes I'm putting together a seminar, and sometimes I was going out to seminars and giving talks. So my job was just kind of all over the place. One day I had to be special. One day I would go to a meeting and they're like, "Oh, here is our expert in quantum computing hardware," and I'm like, "Okay, sure." And then the next day I'll be like, "Here's our expert in our quantum sensors." So knowing that that's going to happen, I would madly just study up everything I can beforehand, read papers and everything, and go try to be the best expert I can be. So it has been very dizzying ride, and I got to then at the end of it sit down and shape our strategy, saying these are the areas that the AT&T, given the kind of investment we want to make, that we can play roles in, and these are the things that we can do. And I really got to shape it, and I don't think this early in career in any other job I took would have given me such an opportunity. So this kind of leads me to my last part of the talk. Why am I in quantum, and why am I just always so excited that my job is in quantum technology? One of the things that I observed in this phase of quantum is it's not a product yet, definitely. It's an R&D phase and barely going over to development, and it's with a heavy arm in research side. And because of that, there are so many challenges, and unless you go to a very well-established quantum program that you join, it's kind of hard to, first of all, find your way in, because it's not one of those postings you can write and say, hey, we need someone who does a lot of quantum. We don't know what kind of quantum we're going to do, so be expert at everything. That's the kind of a posting you would have to write if you're hiring for the position, because I actually had to write that posting because we were looking to expand the team at one point. And it's very kind of difficult to get in for that reason. And I think to get in, I think what you have to is really jump in. And once you do, try to connect with people, talk about it. Quantum's industry is still a community. It's very much community effort to push this technology forward to the point where it is definitely viable in the industry world. And right now, there's a lot of interest from government for many reasons. And I almost feel like privileged to be a person who's working in this field right now. And I feel also a sense of kind of a very duty that has to do with what I do will matter. I have to do put my best effort into it and go forward, or else what I do will determine whether this quantum technology will, as a field later, will survive or not. And it might be not just what I do, but I am now making up the community, and it's I feel like I feel like that's there's another layer of my job that I take it seriously for that reason. But it's still a very high risk, high reward field. There is not very definite applications laid out yet, for sure. There's a lot of potential, but there's a lot not solid lead that says this will definitely change everything. And I find this that I actually want, as a part of my job that I really enjoy, is I had to talk to a lot of companies and a lot of startups and all of other research institutions to try to find a way to form this collaboration and a way to form this community. And it's still in very research and development phase. And in the research community, it's great. They're doing wonderful research. Almost every time I talk to a lab, I almost like want to tear up, because the kind of like heroic effort that needs to go in quantum, because in a way that we're trying to have this terrible fight with the thermodynamics and trying to open it up. So it's a heroic effort that it's amazing. But because of that, I think either companies tend to go toward research, pure research, and kind of forget the development part of things. And there are companies that jump in, oh, we're going to develop today on things that are not ready for it. And in the process, I've seen definitely a company talk to me, more than once talk to me about, hey, we want to do this X quantum thing. And at the end of it, they try to like face these challenges of the technological gap, and at the end of the view, realizing that that they forgot quantum. Their end product didn't have quantum. Trying to bridge the gap of the quantum instrument, they just dropped it and didn't even realize it. So actually, I have a couple of questions I'm seeing that says recommendations on how to get into business side of quantum. And yes, that's another interesting point about quantum, is that I see very heavy culture from academics going in, and then very heavy business side of things coming in too, and which makes sense because you need a lot of research expertise to get into the field. But the people who can convince the rest of the business to say this is not a technology that doesn't have right now a goal toward a profit, or right now a product, but we still need to invest in it, are very great good people who can kind of show this innovation and the big picture and communicate with the rest of the community. So there's like this very interesting dynamic going on in quantum. And to get into business side, I think you still need to know some quantum, but luckily there is a lot of resources. So I would say first get a little bit of basics in the quantum, and there are so many events, so many free events. There's meetups. There's so many different kind of events that's out there, and I'll say go there. And speakers are always happy to talk to you. Like I mentioned, it's a very community-like field. And third, no matter what you do right now, their quantum is very heavily saturated in people who knows a lot about the technical side of things, engineering and physics. But to actually become a whole industry, I see a lot of gap in people with the other skills that built up into making into industry. So I don't know what sorry, I can't see your whole title, so I don't know what you do, but if you're a good manager, that kind of managerial skill really helps. I had someone who reached out to me who was in marketing, who came up to me and offered, hey, in marketing, this is how you clearly communicate. And if you really want to sell your idea, this is how you should do it and offer services. So there are different ways that you can be in quantum. And you know, if you, let's say you run a company on A, not everyone's expert in A. There's a lot of other facets of it that other than technology stuff that you need to know. So if you are somewhat familiar with and excited about the technology and you have another expertise in different field, I think that is actually a great thing for you to get involved in. And one of the things that I want to talk about is that, lastly, is that I have been woman in physics for a very long time, and I've noticed that at least condensed matter physics, experimental condensed matter physics, has been notoriously bad in having women. And then when Denise invited me to talk, and I just like, yeah, it's kind of sometimes nice because when I go to this huge APS March meeting conference, there's a huge line out the men's restroom, but there's no line out a woman's restroom. I can go and just pick whichever stall I need to be. And I still see kind of that being the true in the quantum field. But when I do look into it, there's excellent quantum women researchers out there. And there's a lot of women in quantum field that does great work. And I think it's time that we highlight that. And I sometimes kind of forget that I'm at the point where I forget that I'm the only woman in the room. I remember in graduate school, I was taking my one last class I had to take for records ed. And I was like deep into my PhD research. So the class was something that I was like, oh, I just have to get over with. So I would skip quite a bit. I mean, I'm not happy to share this, but I would skip some of the classes. And one day I mentioned to one of my friends, being like, I bet they don't notice. It's like 40 people class. And then he just looks at me and goes like, but you're the only woman in that class. I'm sure the professor notices when the only woman's not there. And I'm like, well, it took me half a semester and him pointing out to figure out that I was the only woman there, and realize, as I mentioned earlier about now there's I feel some kind of sense of duty towards shaping the field in quantum, but I also feel now a sense of duty as a woman representing the field and trying to, first of all, I think to break this kind of the barrier, and if there's any kind of bias toward women not doing a good job, I don't want to feed into that bias. I kind of feel the sense to make sure that I do my job better than any way I possibly can. And then second is that I really try to reach out to the other women if they want to get in and they feel somehow struggled, that I'm always happy to reach out to me on LinkedIn, and I'm happy to talk to you and give any kind of advice if there is anything that I can do for you. And I think this event is great because we got to network, and it's just at the end of the day, I'm very awed by that quantum technology is blossoming into a field. It is like there's a mention in the chat right now about how it's very challenging to convince business to get into quantum. Even within my business, where it was decided we're going to do quantum, but in a big company, it was always I was always a salesperson going around in different business units, being like, "Hey, it actually makes perfect sense for you to be in quantum right now, and these are the reasons." And then they would look at me and be like, "Hmm, would that actually impact my next quarterly ROI?" And I'm like, "No." Will it impact me in next year's ROI? And like, no, but it will impact you in 3 or 5 years. And this is a sensible invitation that we need to, sensible investment we need to make right now, because none of this adaptation will happen right now in just one day. And that's one of the things that I continue to communicate with the business, that at the end of getting through was pointing out, okay, let's say there is a huge quantum computer that just got built. We found out that this one person had a big breakthrough, and within like a few months, we have this perfect system. And with that breakthrough, now you have everything that you need in quantum technology. Do you know what to do to take advantage of that? It's not easy to go one day and say, oh, we have now this new thing, let's just plug it into our business and really take advantage of that and get the headway. I think the work really needs to be done now as the technology is developing, because I think you're helping alongside with the developing technology to actually really shape it and then point it, and you get to be a part of it. I'm sorry, at the end of it, it kind of became a ramble. I was really just excited to kind of share my personal opinion and my personal story and my personal stake into this wonderful field, and with this wonderful crowd that you guys have gathered here. So really, that was my talk. I think at the end of it, the big message I want to take is, it's not going to be easy, whatever quantum job you take. Not because quantum mechanics is hard. I don't think that's why it's not easy. It's because there are so many uncertainties. There are so many questions that are not answered. There's no particular structure out there. But I think it's just an exciting ride because of that. And how many jobs out there that you can take? How many careers can you go through where you can say, wow, I get to really make a big impact in the field, the way it's developing, the whole technology is growing up. So I just really wanted to share my opinion on that. And at the end of the day, I think it's beautiful that we're trying to bring this quantum theory and quantum phenomena into our world. And at the end of it, even if, let's say, we fail to build a quantum computer, I think it will just change the way we think about things. It's a very different way of thinking about things. And if nothing else, I think that's very beneficial to human society. And I think with that, I'll conclude my talk. And thank you so much for listening to my kind of personal ramble through my career. Thank you.